Okay, so I'm calling to order the meeting of the Open Space Committee of November 10th, 2021. I'm only 21 years behind here. And present is a quorum of Janet Brown, Charlie McDonald, Diana Fetterman, and myself. We hope a couple more people can come. We have two guests tonight so far, Doric Dodds and Sierra Simmons. And here's Megan Kuczynski, wonderful. She is another guest. So the first order of business is to ask if there is, well, first of all, I had thrown out the idea, there's April, I had thrown out the idea of altering our timing a little bit on tonight's meeting. And because two members who wanted, well, one is a member of the Open Space, and that's Dan LaValle, who's often the pinch hitter for Paula Mack for Parks. Paula's possibly, I think he said she's out of town, but Dan had to go to the Parks meeting tonight, but he assumed that this was going to be his meeting was going to be a short meeting. So he's probably going to come in around 1:30. And the other person who's on the Housing Commission is Janet Kane, and she also would like to attend. So what I'd like to do is ask if there is a motion to alter our business to allow for jumping in on new business, which is the property on East Street that's before our town, specifically our select board, for the potential for either accepting the right of first refusal or waiving it. So do I hear a motion to alter our agenda just so we can do that when those people show up?
So moved.
Charlie moved, and do I hear a second?
I'll second it, Janet.
Janet seconded. Okay, so just I'm going to call the committees. Sorry, Diana?
April is muted, I think.
Yeah, April will get
She
there.
was
Yeah.
talking.
Okay, so just April, we'll accept your hand raise for when, if you approve to change that. April, do you approve changing the order? Just raise your hand or unmute. Okay, she's up. Charlie, do you approve it?
Yes.
Janet, do you approve it?
Yes.
Diana, do you approve it? The change of order of the agenda?
Yes.
Cindy Palmer approves it too. Okay, so it's unanimous. All right, so let's proceed with review of minutes. And I think I can actually share screen and call them up. Let's see here, draft minutes. Here we are. And these actually are my changes to, sorry, these are the ones that I changed from what originally, this isn't really a good one. I'm gonna stop sharing. This isn't a good one. Janet had sent out minutes for review and they were emailed. Did anyone have any changes, or do I hear a motion to accept as written?
I'll accept them as written. I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second to accept as written?
Second.
Thanks, Diana. Is there any discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor, I'm going to call your names. Diana?
Aye.
April?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Cindy? Yes. Okay, so those were unanimously accepted. I am aware that we have some executive session minutes from several months ago to review. We won't do that tonight, but we will do it the next time, I think, because we're kind of moving to the point where it's time to review them. Now it's time for public comments. I know Sierra and Doric and Megan might have comments, but you might want to hold till a little later in the agenda. Does anybody want to make comments at this time? No, I see negative, and then I don't even see Megan's face, but I assume she's going to speak if she wants to make a comment now. Hearing none. Okay, we're moving on. So I think in terms of old business, let's see here. At this point, I'm going to talk about the property on map 12, parcel number 10. We've talked about this one multiple times. This is the one where at the last meeting, it was agreed that the Open Space Committee would make a bona fide offer to purchase this property. And I've worked with our very capable member, April, who has a tremendous experience and skill in real estate. And I'm going to bring you up to date. The determination was that we needed to get $500 to put down as an offer with this offer to purchase the property, an amount of $500. And also that we needed funds for an appraisal. I went to CPC at the last meeting and that was approved. The one important caveat was that that we need to go to town meeting for any monies from CPC funding that would be used for purchase of land. Yes, we can use 500 from their administrative fund, but any agreement or any proposal that we would make to this buyer would be contingent on a number of things. But on one of the things would be that that they would return the $500 if they were not interested in this offer, or if for some reason the contract didn't go through. So April and I went through, and she helped me complete a lot of the aspects to it. The terms are as follows. The contract would be subject to legal review and approval. The buyer has the ability to extend the inspection period due to weather conditions. If for some reason we're trying to do the appraisal and we get a monstrous snowstorm or something, then that would extend the period that's determined as part of the contract. The contract is contingent upon the Town of Southampton voters' approval to purchase the acreage and cover the appraisal, legal fees, and recording fees with community preservation funds. Of course, it has to go to town meeting. The contract is contingent upon a property appraisal performed by an independent qualified appraiser at or above the agreed purchase price, which we're proposing is $40,000, because we assume it is 40 acres, and the accepted rate for a property that's has no active maintained road is $1,000 an acre approximately. And also one other term would be that the seller grants permission for the buyer to do site visits with a 48-hour notice to the seller via email confirmation. So that means that when we do schedule an appraisal, that we can actually go on the property, and we'll give them 48 hours so that we can see the property. It's important to do that. We wouldn't want to have to go on any of the abutters properties. The only one that would be okay to go on is the Town of Southampton. So just for your information, this is property just a little bit northwest, I guess, of what is now called Great Mountain Trail. Okay, formerly called Durrell's Path, for those of you that weren't at previous meetings. Do you know where that is, Doric?
No, that name's unfamiliar.
Oh my gosh, have you lived here long? It's if you go up Wolcott Road and it ends in private property currently owned by the Lohr family.
Lower family, yeah.
Yeah, and if you keep going up, there's absolutely beautiful property that's owned by the Town of Southampton that actually this summer it was worked on by the Student Conservation Commission, and they blazed trails and they did a beautiful job. I was up there. Diana and I were up there a couple of weeks ago. Charlie, Diana and I were up there a couple of weeks ago. It's so beautiful. So we're looking at the property right next to it. But the other three sides of the property are private owners. Okay. So April, what else do I need to ask this committee? Because you said we should probably discuss it in this committee.
Well, do you have a vote on the offer amount? That's the only thing that I would ask about, should that be on record? The other thing is that the Open Space Committee should know that we would send along the deposit money, the $500, to the real estate attorney representing the seller if and when the offer was accepted, not before.
And that attorney would hold that $500.
Correct.
Pending everything else.
Account, right, pending closing. Yep.
Okay, great.
I'm
Does
sure
anybody
they'll
want-
be legal wording that Copeland and Page will want to have with that, but that's normal real estate transaction stuff.
Okay. I have let our town administrator know that we're at this point. April and I are trying to come up with the right time to actually make a phone call to this owner who hasn't communicated back to emails or a written letter to me in months. And so we thought we'd at least try to make a phone call, maybe from town hall, so it, came through as a town of Southampton phone number on his phone. We're working on that aspect. Does somebody want to ask either me or April any questions at this point?
Well, I guess I could ask one thing. Is this a landlocked parcel? A lot of that seemed to be going on in that lower neighborhood up there.
I did meet with our DPW person today, Randall Kemp, and he couldn't be emphatically certain if this is an abandoned road or just an unmaintained town road. He's got a lot of old memos from previous times, and but he's not doing any plowing up there or anything like that. So we are of the assumption that it is landlocked. I don't know the steps to get this confirmed and stamped and 100% certain, but I think when we do the appraisal, we're going to have to know that, because the way I viewed it, Diana, Charlie, you can chime in. That road went right through the parcel, didn't it, in your opinion?
I'd say so, yes. And that information from Lawrence Osborne from 1995, that was very useful for me because I hadn't seen that. And I was on the commission until 2018, the Conservation Commission, which tried to discuss this issue. But it was well presented by Mr. Osborne in 1995.
I don't think it's the same issue, Charlie. It's not the same issue. No, I think that letter, which was from a town resident who was an attorney in 1995, that had to do with the right of way to access the area. It didn't have a specific thing about is that road an abandoned road, or is it a
But
town?
if that's the right of way, then that means it's not landlocked.
But
In
Diana,
my mind, you can
Diana,
get there on.
it's a right of way to the town property, which is first.
So it's a right of way to the town property, and then the town property abuts this property. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, but it doesn't say it goes through to the other property.
No, but if you can walk through the town property, you can walk to the edge of it. I mean, it wouldn't be landlocked if the town acquired it, put it that way. Because the town has a right of way through its property. And if the town acquires this property, then that right of way then that access would be extended. That's how I understand it.
Okay, we'll have to figure that out. To me, there is no access to the property that we're discussing because the town property is in the way. That's how I view it right now. If the town was to acquire it, then we would have access through it. But right now, the town hasn't given a right of way to that property.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Doric?
Yeah, I think so. Mostly what I was looking for was the confidence that the severely depressed value would stay that way just because the land didn't really have any other usefulness. I agree that if it becomes appended to town property, that would change its level of usefulness, but fortunately not in a way that we're ever going to care about, I hope.
Okay.
For development, you mean?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking for a motion to accept the proposed agreement of $40,000 for the purchase, but the way let's see here. How do we write that? Yeah, that was one of the additional terms. The contract is contingent upon a property appraisal performed by an independent qualified appraiser at or above the agreed purchase price. So we're talking 40,000 unless the appraisal comes in higher. So that's what we're looking for.
We're talking about 40,000 unless the appraisal comes in lower. And then we would, by state law, have to adjust to the appraised value, because we're not competing with a purchase and sale as far as we know.
I'm sorry, I couldn't read your writing, April. So it's appraisal at or below the agreed purchase price.
No.
Oh, go ahead.
So, but your motion, I mean, the offer is written that the appraisal, the price has the contract of $40,000, if accepted, would only, there's a contingency that the town would go forward if the appraised value comes in at 40,000 or anything above 40,000. If it's below 40,000, we have the opportunity to renegotiate or withdraw from the purchase.
Okay. Do you want to make the motion, April?
So I'll make a motion that the Open Space Committee accept or approve Cindy to make a formal offer of $40,000 on the 40-acre parcel on map 10, whatever the lot number is. Subject,
map 12, lot 10.
Lot 10, subject to all the conditions in the offer, including that the property appraise at the purchase price or above the purchase price.
And you have the opportunity, if it's below the purchase price or the agreed upon price, then you can renegotiate, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Or withdraw from the offer.
Or withdraw, yeah.
Yes, and that's a state statute. We can't go above appraised value. I'm correct in that, right, Diana? That's what we ran into on Pomeroy Meadow, correct? Remember?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
That's what we had to come up with on Pomeroy Meadow. Do you remember that? I mean, we were competing with one purchase and sale for one building lot, but we were buying several.
Yeah, we had to match it, I believe. I believe that was required.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just know that Ed worked very hard with the appraiser to get the numbers to where they needed to be to comply with the regulations that the state places on a town purchasing property.
Okay, I'm going to read this back to you. Open Space, the motion is Open Space Committee approve CP Cindy Palmer as the chair to make a formal offer of $40,000 to purchase property at map 12, parcel 10, subject to all conditions, including appraisal at or above the purchase price. If the appraisal is lower, this contract can be renegotiated or the buyer can withdraw. Is that right? Is that right? Yeah, okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Charlie seconded it. So April made it, Charlie seconded it. And any further discussion? Joy, I know you just joined. This has to do with the offer to purchase the property that we have talked about before, which is above the town-owned property. Great, I keep stumbling on this, Great Mountain Trail, 40 acres, and April and I worked on this, and so we're looking just to have this motion for $40,000 to be the price, again, subject to appraisal.
Okay.
Okay? And I did, and we are gonna, we put the other contingencies, which included legal review. Okay?
Excellent.
Okay, very good. So I'm gonna do a roll call. hearing no other discussion, I'm going to proceed with the vote. Diana,
Aye.
Cindy, aye. I'm looking at my screen. April,
Aye.
Charlie,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Joy.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, that's great. All right, moving on here. Let's see, 6:23, and I don't see anybody else from that we're expecting to arrive to has joined it yet. So the next item, Charlie, do you want to put it up about talk about the Pollinator Garden and your meeting with the water department, please?
Okay. I think you all got an email the end of last week on Thursday that reviewed the present state of the structure design for the Pollinator Garden that we're intending to put on the water department property on Pomeroy Meadow Road. You also got a detail of how the paver brick walkway will be constructed. And today, and I reviewed that as per a request at our last meeting with Randall Kemp. And he agreed that everything seemed to be satisfactory from his perspective, which was primarily to keep maintenance low. I also this afternoon, went over to the water commissioners and reviewed the process and the design and the review of how the walkway, the paver brick walkway, would be constructed. They went through all the details of the restrictions associated with that land grant. And they also, in the past, have been concerned about any impermeable surface like asphalt or cement. I reviewed the paver brick structural design, and they seem to accept that. The one thing they would challenge me on is that underneath the two benches that we're intending to put there, we have a cement base, and they said that may have some overlap on the restrictions associated with the land grant that we have on that property for water protection. So they suggested some alternative means to keep those benches in place, and including ground screws and so on. So that aspect of the design will probably have to go through some modification. The most important thing they said to me is the conservation restriction on that property is held by Kestrel. That means we have to review what we are intending to do on that property with them for their approval. So I'm not going to change anything in the design nor the structure of how it's going to be built until that review occurs. So that's the only qualification. We have to proceed with talking to Kestrel about what exactly we're going to do there, and they have to correlate it with their own thinking on the conservation restriction. As you know, the Conservation Commission has conservation restrictions on a number of parcels, Wolf Hill, as well as the end of Red Brook Estates. And they usually give it to Conservation Works every 3 years or something like that, to walk the property and write a report. And so Kestrel must do that for that water department property. So that's the one thing that we have in an action item. And I talked to Cindy before the meeting about that, and I will mail her something in an email describing what we have to do, and as well as connecting the attaching the plan as well as the details of how the walkway will be constructed. So that basically is where we stand. I think in that email, I also included some relevant facilitators or people who would help us build that And Randall made one suggestion, and even the water department. I don't think they have any serious reservations about this project, but we do have to cross some Ts and dot some more Is. That's all.
Okay, so thank you, Charlie. This is really a report at this point. So there isn't anything else because we have to do this next step with Kestrel. Has
That's
anybody
correct.
got any questions for Charlie at this point? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Charlie. It'll happen in the 21st century. I'm sure of it. Yes. Okay.
Good.
So at this point, let's see here. Still don't see any new people showing up. It's still not 6:30. We're going to go through some committee reports, only if as relevant to the Open Space Committee. Planning Board, I don't have any report to make at this time. And when we get to the point of talking about the property on East Street regarding the right of first refusal, I'll just give the report of what the Planning Board said. Let's see here. Janet Brown, do you want to say anything about CPC?
Well, the thing is, we did meet on October the 6th. We talked about the Park Commission's splash pad project. And the Greenway received 2 $100,000 grants. And the other thing we discussed a little bit was about the rail part, but that's basically all we talked about.
Didn't we also approve, Janet, that we approved that it would go on the warrant to utilize CPC funds for additional acquisition money for the Greenway land, the acquisition of the land? That was like 270,000. Did that happen at that meeting?
They're asking for 270,000. The design costs are usually about, what they say, 12%. My notes say that the cleanup agreement with the railway is 340,000 and the legal cost is 30,000. So that's what they're asking. I have where they're asking the CPC for $270,000.
Yeah, to accompany the 2 grants that we already got. And this is only for rail banking is the term I hear sometimes.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
It was noted, Marini, I think, noted it was not a lease because the railroad retains the right to take back, but probably they wouldn't. But that was was not a lease that we were getting from them.
Okay. Anything else for CPC? Okay.
No.
April, do you want to say anything about assessors?
Well, I'll go back to the rail banking. Rail banking has been done across the entire country to make a bike pass in the past 3 decades. So it's not an unusual thing. The assessors, the only thing that I have to report on open space is the letter that the assessors received on a parcel that is under contract in Chapter 61A on East Street. So, and the Board of Assessors did vote to encourage the Select Board to pursue any avenues that might benefit the town for the purchase of that property.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Thank you. I just had a text from Janet Keynes. She says they're coming in a few minutes. All right. So in the meantime, can somebody report, Joy, can you report from Select Board?
Sure. In regards to open space, I don't think there's anything besides what CPCS stated in regards to the warrants. We just went over the warrants and we discussed the chapter 61A that we're going to discuss in a little bit at length. Yep. Trying to think if there's anything else pertaining specifically to open space. I don't believe so. I mean, there was discussion about the former Durrell's Path, great little mountain path, which you guys have already addressed tonight. I think that's it off the top of my memory.
Thanks, Joy. Somebody want to report on Conservation Commission? Diana?
they did waive the right of first refusal, voted to do that on the East Street parcel, but Marla encouraged other committees to look into it. Or, I mean, do I want to say they waived the right? They voted to say that they did not, see that it could be conservation land.
Right.
Even though there was discussion that it's a huge wildlife corridor. There's over 100 acres across East Street. There's acres below it, south on, I guess the back of Strong Road. So it seemed people were a little sad that, we would lose that kind of a greenway. But because it does not abut conservation property, Concom did not see what they could do about it. Let's see. Well, there's been a lot going on with the Manhan Meadows grant project. We are about to take delivery on Friday of a kiosk from Vermont Timber, and the Highway Department's been very helpful. They are going to install it for us, so it's all very exciting. It'll be right by the East Street entrance to Manhan Meadows, far enough back that the reconstruction of East Street wouldn't affect it. We had huge discussions and searches and anxiety about rail banking and all those things, but we decided that, split rail, it'll go partially where the old split rail fence had been, behind the brown sign, and it'll kind of face both the street and be at an angle that will also be facing the future rail trail. So it'll kind of do double duty, we hope. And very excited about that. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else right now. Just that the files are in terrible shape in the town hall. I'll say that. The old maps and the old deeds. Oh my God.
Will they be clearing all that?
Pardon?
Will they be clearing all that brush behind the sign? Is that where it's going, the kiosk?
We already cleared it. I did. My husband and I did that. I think the highway department cleared some.
In the last day or two?
Yeah. And Cindy was there. She and I did it in the rain. So I think the highway department must have picked up the brush.
Super.
Yeah.
Didn't Megan come down with her truck? She's on this call.
Yeah. Did you help? No, I don't think Megan picked it up.
I didn't know.
No, the highway department must have taken all of them.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're going to see it. Pardon?
Oh, I was going to ask Cindy if I could mention something to open space in general from the select board.
Okay, can you just wait one sec, Joy? I think you can. I just want to make sure. Diana, was there anything else?
Absolutely.
I think I'm done. I'm just going on about the kiosk. I feel
okay, very good.
Personally involved with it. So.
Very good. Okay, Joy, did you want to add something?
Yeah, sorry, Diane. I didn't mean to cut you off.
All right.
I just wanted to remind everyone who is interested that the Housing Authority is having a housing production plan community meeting on November 18th at 6:30 via Zoom. That's a Thursday. So just for general, if anyone is interested. And also that reminder that town meeting is December 14th.
That's great. Well, perfect entree, because two people just showed up. And Dan LaValle, can you give us a report related to open space from parks? Because that's the last report for now. Can you, I know you just left the parks meeting. Is there anything you want to report to the open space committee about parks?
Like any new updates in terms of parks relating to open space?
Yes.
Nothing new to discuss, except we're pursuing the at town meeting, getting the matching to the reimbursement grant for the parks grant, to add accessibility paths and potentially a splash pad. And we just discussed adding signage to Liberty Field and the Angel Heart Memorial. So.
Thank you. Great. Okay, and because we have representation from housing, I'm going to just ask if anybody wants to just give a general update about housing over and above what Joy just said about your ongoing community meetings, the next one being 11/18 via Zoom. Does anyone else want to add anything for just general comment related to open space before we get into discussing the East Street property? They're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying, I don't know, Sarah, if you have anything additional for open space, I guess from a housing perspective, I can't see, other than the housing production plan that we're working on, which will allow us to control our fate for future affordable housing in town. And hopefully people can attend that on the 18th at 6:30. The link is on the website. It's via Zoom. So.
Thank you. Very good. Okay.
Nice subject.
Excellent. Okay. So at this point, the next piece of business is under new business. And we agreed earlier that we would just shift our agenda around a little bit so we could start talking about that right now as soon as you guys got here. So I'm going to share my screen at this point to find, oh my God, where'd it go? Show all windows. I know I called it up before, charge, post attendee. What happened to it? Why does this happen to me?
Oh, it's not just you.
I prepared it in advance. Where'd it go? Is there a way to show? Okay, let me try that. Oh, here it is. Got it. Show all windows. Okay. Thank you, Dork. It was because you spoke up that I could do it. So what we're going to discuss at this point is the fact that this letter was received by the Board of Selectmen, dated October 25th, 2021, from an attorney, Amanda Kemp, representing Christine Canton, who's the owner of a 20.36 acre parcel on East Street, which is map 29, lot 55. I sent this out to you folks in advance so you'd get a little familiarity with this. And this property was in Chapter 61A, and they are specifically stating that this is to give notice with the intent to convert this to residential use for construction of a minimum of, and I think it says 8 family homes. I got to minimize here. Hold on. 8 single family homes to request a waiver. They want to waive the option, the town to waive the option to purchase this parcel. And this is all covered under Mass General Law. And they also sent it to the Board of Assessors, to the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, and the State Forester. And then you saw the map here. So it's this parcel that it's sort of light, a little light area here to identify. This is East Street. You see where my cursor's going. And so this kind of comes uphill above this development of a few years back called Whispering Meadows. And then this down here, this big thing, and this is Strong Road, this big area referred to as parcel 126 is where Liberty Field is. Am I right on that? I think I am. And then there's another sort of development here called Old Harvest. And these are single family homes on Strong Road. And then across the street from this parcel, all this land is open space. All this land here. This is parcel 12. It says 112 acres. And then there's also undeveloped acreage over here on the left or west side of this. I think it's west. It might be south, actually south, because the map got shifted. So this is open, this we have time constraints, and I say we, the town has time constraints. It all falls to the select board, but they're waiting for input. What we already heard tonight was that planning board reviewed this and determined from a planning board standpoint, they would support waiving the right to purchase this, the right of first refusal for purchase of it. And the Conservation Commission also did, but both of those committees definitely stated they wanted it to be reviewed by Housing and by Open Space Committee. So maybe somebody from Housing could talk about it this is time, because you actually discussed this in your meeting the other night.
I guess I'm curious what open space, what your feeling is. I know Sarah as well is on here. So, and I don't want to jump in. I can't see her, so I'm going to look for her right now. So you can add whatever at whatever time. So, I mean, as you know, we had two options presented to us at Monday's meeting. This particular option for purchasing a property for potential building of affordable housing, and another one from Bob Cannon about integrated affordable housing in property on College Highway across from Cumberland Farms. So we went from having nothing to having more than we're sure what to do with. So it's going to be hard, I think, to do both. So we have to have some more discussion on next Thursday when we meet to determine, you know, if we buy property for $480,000 plus legal plus closing, we have 440 in our housing right now. 447, Sierra, is that what you remember on CPA funds? And we also so that would probably put us close to 500. So we're short some monies there, but there's undesignated funding, which does not mean that at the time of maybe sending out an RFP for building of affordable housing, that builder would not ask for additional CPA funds. So it's, you know, there's a lot to really think about in a very short period of time, whether or not this is viable or which of the two is most viable. And also who would manage the process, because a housing authority isn't quite the same as a town board or committee. And some of that responsibility for the management of the process would fall on the housing authority. And also who would manage the property for the first year of warranties. Do we sell the property? Do we engage someone like Hilltown CDC? Will it pass? Does it have to go in front of abutters for approval for affordable housing? So there's a lot of, you know, unknowns, I think, for us right now. So Sherry, you want to add anything too?
I think you just about covered it. One thing that Joy mentioned at our meeting was potentially a mixed use open space and housing option. So that's something I also wanted to, I was interested in hearing what other people think about that. And yeah.
And we're still looking for final clarification about the 70%. So if we bought the property and turned it over to Habitat for Humanity or a nonprofit builder, are we required to keep the 70% in open space, or how is that actually? We don't have firm clarification on what that clause really means. So I don't know if anybody here has any thoughts on that or have received any more clarification on that.
I didn't know for sure if Virginia Ahart, who's quite expert in everything related to CPC money, had anything to add. She really didn't, except to remind us that the open space designated CPC money could not be used for housing. Housing money would be used for housing. However, they could be used jointly. That she wanted me to make that point to you. She did remind us of the time frame, of course. And also, I have had a thought, because I did sit in on the housing committee meeting where they heard the presentation from the two Mr. Cannons, one being a landscape architect, one being a realtor. You you know, they were talking about, am I right, 30 units total on that property down on College Highway? I think that was the total number. And
41 units, I believe, 41 units, 10 of which would be affordable.
Okay.
So
they were making the point that that would exceed the usual 10% that's required under the inclusionary zoning bylaw.
Yes.
However, even if, and then they wanted this to, you know, have access to the CPC housing money in order to support their whole project. That was my understanding of it. If they didn't get that money and they built these units that they have proposed, they still will be subject to the inclusionary zoning bylaw. In other words, they'll have to have affordable housing based on, because, you know, what we have experienced in the past is subdivisions that have just fallen under the number that would require them to put in the 10% or 1 unit per 8. And they, you know, just seem to always come in at 8. So I just want to make that point. So even if they didn't get the money, they would have to do something different with their plans, maybe larger lots, fewer lots. I don't know how they want to do it, but I was thinking of that. And I think, Sierra, tell me, because you said it quickly, and I know you're an expert on grant writing, which we have a few in town, and you're very, involved in that. Did you think there could be any grant money toward contributing towards this if the town was to exercise its right of first refusal, and could more monies go towards the purchase of this?
I think it's more likely that we would get money to support development and like further action on it than the initial purchase is my impression. It's not unheard of, but it's a pretty fast turnaround time for that. And it sounds like we'd have to put the money up quickly. So I don't think we'd have time to get grant funds for that, although I would defer to Chris Fowles as the head of the grant committee for that. But I definitely think there was I was mentioning at the housing meeting, looking at the grants that were available through the One Stop program, which comes through in spring, a lot of them depended on you having the property to work with, which we really didn't have at the time. So buying this property could potentially put us in line for additional grants for development, for feasibility studies, site studies, and things like that.
Okay. So at this point, I'm going to speak on my own behalf regarding the acquisition of this land for the town from an open space standpoint. This is pretty property. There's elevation here that kind of comes up where my cursor's coming up this road a little bit. And this is all undeveloped on the other side here and undeveloped back here. I think it's beautiful, and I think it would be lovely. I am aware, however, that we have a lot of lands in our town that are potentially wonderful lands to see conserved, either through purchase or through conservation restrictions or through something. And a little bit later on, I can speak about how I've been talking to Kestrel and potentially applying for a landscape partnership grant, but we've been focusing on the lands kind of way on the northern side of our town, above the Tycarmody Reservoir, large undeveloped parcels. And we're talking to some landowners little by little. And when I asked, because the basic number of acreage that you have to have that's contiguous for a landscape partnership grant, which is a state grant, is 500. That's the basic, sort of beginning amount. You can add other acres that don't have to be contiguous, but they have to be nearby. So I didn't specifically discuss this with Kestrel because this all came up rather recently. But some of the other parcels that are discussed and nearby draw my attention a little bit more. And this is just me talking. I would love to see a lot of open space conserved. So I wonder if other members of the Open Space Committee want to add or ask questions at this point, comment of any kind.
So this is a hay field that is routinely hayed. And so that's why it's nice and clear and you can kind of envision some kind of building going on there. I'm looking at the assessor map that I have, and part of that, let's see, front western corner, heading toward Whispering Meadows, is actually marked on my assessor map as wetlands. There's also, it's not a very deep lot, so if the developer is going to get 8 lots out of this with a cul-de-sac, I'm not quite sure how that looks with the amount of frontage and depth on this lot. So that would be interesting. So I don't know.
Didn't I read somewhere at least 8 lots? It said at least 8 lots.
Okay. I just don't know how they're going to do that with what I'm looking at. But anyways.
Well, if there could be 8 lots there, how they could be an acre each, so then they'd be.
No, the square
then
footage.
We're talking about maybe
minimum of 8 single family homes right here.
Yeah.
I just don't, if I'm looking at it from a development standpoint, I just don't see, because each lot has to be 100, have 130 or 140 feet of frontage. It has to be 150 feet deep. It has to be 40,000 square feet. I don't know how it's all going to lay out. Somebody must have done some math and some initial sketches, but anyway, that's just from a real estate.
Well, I just raised that because wouldn't that give us an idea of what kind of a offer we would have to match?
But we would be matching what the bona fide offer is of 480,000. Oh, sorry, that probably didn't.
No, it's okay.
I would say
it was
about
discussed.
$1 million, right? Close to $1 million.
What?
The offer price is 480.
Oh, I see.
So we'd be matching that.
Okay. All right.
But could we end up spending less if the appraisal comes lower than that?
Nope.
No, it has to be the.
Yeah.
It has to match the bona fide offer. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Under Chapter 61, you have to match a purchase offer.
One thing I notice here is there's also a large number of trees. So whoever bought this land would be able to sell off some of that timber and make some money, some profit. So keep that in mind.
The other thing that I know is that I don't think that town water services go down that far. They may go to Whispering Meadows, but the 2 houses that abut this property across the street and right next door, those 2 small squares,
These right here?
Yes, I sold both of those houses, and those houses are on wells. So
I will say that Ed Gibson did speak to Tom Gahn to see if the viability of connecting town water here, and he said yes. I don't know what costs, that we would incur in addition to what we're already looking at. So, I mean, just if I could just make a comment on Cindy's comment on the College Highway property. I mean, granted, first of all, they're looking to put affordable with capital A and affordable with lowercase a, with square footage of houses between 1,100 and 1,600. And the town is in dire need for both. So that people that don't meet the median 80% still can't afford to come to Southampton because their house pricing have gone up, through the roof. So that would accomplish 2 of, I think, the Housing Authority's initiatives in that particular lot. And I'm only speaking from we haven't voted on it. This is just in response to Cindy. So in order to do that, I think they're going to need assistance from our CPA funds in order to make that a reality. The other option we give them, if we say we can't support this and we're not going to support this, is they put more large housing in there and we don't accomplish any of those goals. So that's just kind of my initial thoughts on that subject. So
sounds like a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't attend that meeting on Monday, but was any mention made at that meeting? Because Bob Cannon made a mention of it earlier in a different meeting about changing zoning bylaws to be less restrictive so that housing could be more tightly stacked in order to accomplish affordable housing. Did that come up in this meeting on Monday?
I think he was talking about a frontage of 104 feet. So he did speak to that. I think affordable does allow some of that variation. So by including that, I think that gives them some flexibility. I don't know specifically. Nobody here from, well, Dan's here from planning, but I don't know from that
Oh my, I'm here from planning.
Oh yeah, sorry, Cindy. Yeah, duh.
I mean, so that's a question for the planning board to go back into bylaws and look at the newer subdivision revisions that I'm not real familiar with. So
I think that's the goal of planning board, and representatives from housing authority will be discussing the those bylaws that specifically affects affordable housing at the December 1st meeting, which was actually, planning board actually meets in town hall. So if you are interested, the more the merrier.
I will also caution in future meetings, I know these are recorded, but I would, in negotiating with a developer on a big parcel like College Highway, get everything in writing before agreeing to anything.
I don't think anybody's agreed with anything, April. It's just a discussion and they shared a plan. They don't even own the property yet. So certainly we're a long ways off from either one of these being a reality. So I certainly don't disagree with you any more than me buying a house.
That's good recommendation.
Well, if housing doesn't see that either of these is imminent, then maybe open space should do something if we feel like it's worth conserving.
And again, we haven't voted from a housing perspective. We're doing it next Thursday. So this is just a discussion, Diana. So we have not made a decision one way or the other.
Okay.
And tonight's meeting, I will say the select board needs us to respond. Joy, do you have in your head when we need to respond by to the select board?
I think our next meeting is just November 23rd. I think.
Yeah.
The date that 30 days is is November 25th. Correct me if I'm wrong, to decide whether we're going to be interested in it. So we need to know by November 23rd, I think, if we're going to be interested in it.
That's under 2 weeks from today. That's 2 weeks from yesterday, November 23rd. So the Open Space Committee is not expected to meet between now and then. And I know Housing will be talking about it afterwards. I'm of mixed feelings. I think it'd be so lovely to get this land, but I'm also aware of other properties that, I really was hoping, I am hoping that this would be something that would be good for affordable housing. That's where my head was on this. And I would vote to exercise our right of first refusal to use it for that purpose. And then jump in on this concept of mixed use, and do some lovely open space things in the back of it. And maybe over time, those other spaces, then we would have rationale for acquiring the other open space, because we would have a connection. That's my thought. I want to hear what everyone else thinks about this, though.
You know what I love about your idea is that we typically find that affordable housing, capital A affordable housing, isn't always located around, say, lovely nature environments. It's by giving affordable housing in an area which is just as nice as all the areas we enjoy in town. I think that it matches the character of the houses in town, and that's really one of the goals and principles I think this town wants to live by. Is we have that that open feeling to our housing, not for everybody, not.
So can I ask a question, Cindy? Because I'm not sure, maybe I veered off myself here. So would this be something open space could be interested in as a joint investment? Or are you saying that if we bought it, you would be happy to have some open space? I'm just trying to clarify.
I think the second.
I don't think that we could get a land grant for any kind of housing.
Okay.
So I don't think it could be a joint investment from open space. But
is it true?
But what about the
it
development?
could certainly be
Wait a minute.
project.
One person at a time. Just wait one sec. Go ahead, Diana, finish.
I said, I don't know a mechanism for open space to invest in a property that's about housing. I mean, maybe there is one, but I haven't come across it.
Okay.
As far as getting grant money and all that.
Okay, then.
But I'm not ruling out the idea that we could help, or we could, try to influence the open space aspect of an affordable housing project.
Okay, great.
I was just talking about the money end of it.
And then I think, Joy, were you speaking?
Yeah, I was just wondering if I'm hearing you saying that you don't think that there's any grants out there are you saying like acquire land, or is there? I'm trying to just think outside the box of developing, if there's a way around. I don't know that area that well. I know where it is, but if there were trails that we could connect or something, I really like the idea. I'm literally making a pros and cons of both ideas for housing authority, but pertaining to the 61A, I think would be great for the town to purchase if we could package it somehow with open space or with like a community garden, something that like the town already has some buy-in towards. But that's just my thought. I also see the pros for helping out Route 10, but that's a different discussion.
I had a point, Cindy.
Okay.
As I understood affordable housing, the ideal would be ease of access to transportation, as well as access to retail. And would that favor the Route 10 property for affordable housing?
Well,
is that true?
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly much more central. It is. Right now, it would be across from the current Cumberland Farms.
Yeah.
Potentially walkable to, what do we call it, Pure Foods or Big Y, although there is no sidewalk at this time.
No.
So those are all.
That's the concept as far as judging the two parcels relative to affordable housing. If we were going after open space, could we prioritize what parcels potentially we would find ideal? In my sense, I think more parcels that are in the central part of town would be ideal for some of the pedestrian type activities that could be developed around them, as distinct from parcels that are nice as far as open space, but their value is somewhat compromised in terms of they're adjacent to other properties that are interesting, but we don't have control over them. That's all. I think if we had a prioritized list of what parcels, and I'm thinking of that Whiteley property on Maple Street that I think we've discussed in the past. To me, that's an ideal property, even though it's not available to the best of my knowledge, for open space activities that would be user-friendly for the residents of the town, relatively close to the center of town.
So what you're basically saying is, if we were to stand back and look at the whole town and look at where everything's located and what our goals are, maybe this one wouldn't come up as the goal for a place for affordable housing. It's the one that's come before us, though. It's the one that's coming out of chapter, and the select board has to make a decision on this. Yeah. So that's why we're talking about it tonight, because it wasn't on my radar screen 2 weeks ago because I didn't know about it. I mean, I knew it was there, but I didn't think about it.
It wasn't on anybody's radar screen, but I just did a little research. And
wait, April's speaking. Go ahead, April.
Sorry.
That's all right. I believe that the abutting 10.57 acres behind this lot that has frontage on East Street may be owned or under agreement with the same party that is buying the 20 acres. From a quick search as to who owns it right now, who the tax bill goes to now. So it's the one right behind it that's toward Whispering Meadows, Cindy. So keep going.
Back here?
Yeah.
Really?
No. Just back toward the line of the map.
Where it says 11.57?
Over here?
Yeah, it's parcel 56.
Yeah, 11.57, lower.
Down, the right behind it. Yes,
this one. Yeah. Isn't that locked in, or is that got an access?
It is locked in, but it's owned by the heirs of George Gorton, and the person that has the purchase and sale on the frontage lot, the 20-acre lot, with just recently bought within the last 2 years another Gorton property that sits behind College Highway and has frontage on, what's the name of that road? At Conan Park there, next to
Clark Street.
Clark.
Yes, yeah, it has frontage on Clark. So,
well, is that
anyways? Just that may be why there could be 8 lots. That would answer that, or more. That would answer that question.
Okay, Janet raised her hand. Please, Janet.
April, I know you belong to Hilltown CDC, so we would, if we were to and recommend this property, we would need somebody to manage it. Do you know if they would be willing to come to Southampton to do something like that?
So the answer is yes, but the project has to be big enough to be able to get enough funding. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars to do ADA approved affordable housing. And I think, they would be really thrilled if they could get 15 to 20 houses of units on a property like this. Then it would be a home run. We've had that discussion.
And could they get 15 to 20 properties on a lot like this?
Well,
it didn't sound like it from what you were describing before.
No, if we're building $600,000 and higher mansions, on normal sized lots, they'll get 8 to 10. He will not go over 9 because he will not want to put an affordable housing unit in there based on our current bylaws. But they might be able to, we're talking smaller units, duplexes, fourplexes, that kind of thing. And this would be an ideal location, very similar to probably what they did in Westhampton for senior housing right off Route 66.
Which are rentals, yeah.
And they manage that there.
Yes.
They manage those units in Westhampton. So I think they could get on board very quickly. And they're vastly educated in what grant funding, what methods of funding are out there and all kinds of things like that. It takes years to get into the build stage, but if the town held the property, it could be a win. Like Dan said, it's, you know, it's not a location that affordable housing is typically seen.
Mhm.
So I'm going to acknowledge that Sierra has her hand up, but before I call on you, Sierra, bear in mind that whatever we decide as an open space committee or housing when you get to your vote or select board, all has to go before the town anyway. So it's not like any of our decisions are final. Okay, so that's just one point I want to make. And all of this important information that's coming out of this discussion is so valuable. And remember what our charge is, to do the right thing by the town. So please go ahead, Sierra. Thank you.
So back to this idea of joint investment. You know, if the housing authority were to purchase this solely out of the CPA funds that are designated for housing, that would draw down our entire balance. And depending how, you know, quickly that builds back up, that could preclude us from doing other things. And so I would be not inclined to move forward with this unless there was some way for open space. Like if it was, I don't know much about mixed use, but if the space was both for affordable housing and for open space, and then some of the CPA funds designated for open space could be used to purchase the property, that's really the only way I could see us doing this, because otherwise we're putting all of our eggs in this one basket that we haven't even barely examined to the extent that we would need to.
Have we talked to Ken Comia from PVPC about this property yet? Because I feel like when we discussed mixed use, he gave the impression that it was possible, that he had maybe seen it before. So I feel like maybe I should reach out to him to ask, like, is it real? Or are we talking about a unicorn here?
I don't know if mixed use by his definition is kind of what the canons presented. So it's both affordable and, you know, capital A.
And sometimes it means commercial and residential.
Yeah,
but so does it ever mean open space? Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, we asked him directly, didn't we, during the meeting? Like, could we mix that with open space? Because we did have this conversation about how the town does prioritize open space. And we want open space, but we also want affordable housing. So is there a way to achieve that goal? And it didn't sound negative, but maybe it sounded imaginary. I don't know.
I'll drop him a line and see, you know, later after we get off of this and see. I mean, our challenge is that we have a very short window to not really do as much homework as I think in due diligence. And that's the scary part, to spend $500,000 that I know we've been sitting on it for a long time, but it's going to take us a really long time to build up. And what are we going to need after the purchase is done to maintain it, to help if we have to pay anything up front to clear it, you know, to connect the, I mean, I just, and then to manage the process and there's just so many unknowns, I guess. And due to abutters have to approve affordable housing in their, I don't know that answer. I don't know if
I think there has to be a public hearing for sure.
Yeah. So, but a public hearing is different than, well, I guess they would come out of town meeting to make their statement. And I do agree with Charlie's comment about, you know, and this comment I made the other day is that, yes, it should be near transportation, not that any PVPC buses go through, you know, Southampton anyway, but it would attach to the bike path, which would give them some access, you know, to different locations. There would be some open space proposed at this moment. We don't know what the final plan will ever look like at this moment. So on the other side of the bike path, so 7 acres of open space past that. So, I mean, it checks off a lot of boxes, I think, from an affordable housing perspective. And that's the balance we're at. And they're both unknowns, because all we saw is a sketch of a proposed idea that is part of something that the people don't even own. And, you know, so, I mean,
What do you mean they don't own it? I mean, the owners own it, and
the Cannons will purchase it from the Labrie family.
Oh,
to do this.
I thought they were doing it on behalf of the Labrie family.
No, that's their statement was, I think Joy asked the lawyer question, which is I love Joy. She looks at that perspective, and they said, what is the process? How is this happening? Because we were scratching our head trying to figure that out too. And they said that they would be purchasing the property for the housing part of it.
Diana, I'm going to ask you or April, who was involved in the acquisition of the 111 Glendale Road property, now called Clearwater Woodland. Didn't we get an extension on some of the timing related to the right of first refusal? And I'm wondering, and having said that, if one thing we could propose, because we're all bringing up really good ideas, that we could propose to the select board to go to the attorney representing the owner of this property here on East Street and ask for a 60 or 90-day extension to get us more time. What does everybody think of that as an option?
Yeah, whatever our legal amount of time we're allowed to ask for is what we should ask for.
Well, we're legally allowed to ask for 30 days.
So
that's going to be up in 2 weeks. But if
you can ask politely for an extension, it's up to them to. Yep. So legally, we only get 30 days. Okay.
Correct.
Right, but if it depends on if they're willing to work with us a little bit.
And they may not, yeah. Diana, what was the extension? Do you remember for the property on 111 Glendale? Does anybody remember how much? It was longer than 30 days.
No, I do not remember, but I think it was longer than 30 days, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a different situation, don't you think? It was
definitely a different.
That was under purchase and sale too, and we were competing with a builder there.
Correct.
So, right. I think we got an extension once we said, yes, we're interested and we're gonna put the money up because we have it. I think the builder backed away and we got an extension because we were the only game in town after that. So I think that's what happened.
And there was also a lot of community support for it. There was
right. And yes,
articles in the newspaper and stuff like that.
Yeah. And we lost the College Highway property, on the market by the same seller. So, yeah.
Okay. So, do we need to talk more? Do we need to ask more questions? Does anybody have any kind of motion they want to make?
I mean, we can back out as housing people and let you just continue with your meeting.
I don't think it's a secret. We're going to be recording anyway.
No, I know. I know.
Personally, I wouldn't feel comfortable voting until I know for certain that there really is no mixed use possibilities for open space and housing authority. If there really isn't any potential for there to be some kind of coordination or joint venture between the two, then what, obviously open space, there's not much you can do. Like, okay, then waive the right. But I want to know for sure.
So another option is to not vote tonight. When is housing meeting? Oh, you have your
we're at 5:30 on the 18th.
And that is specifically your community presentation meeting, right?
No, that's at 6:30.
Yeah, we're specifically meeting
We're having a housing meeting at 5:30.
So where I'm leaning, obviously, is to say, take more time, ask more questions, meet again in advance of the 23rd, which is Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. I would favor that personally. I would like to chew on it a little bit longer, find some more answers, do some more research. I don't, I'm so conflicted about this because I think there's potentially so many opportunities here. And I do think East Street, it may happen in my lifetime, is going to be redone. And I'm just hopeful. That's me. I'm an optimist. In all these things that are going to happen. I've been talking to Chris Falls about all the great things that are going on in our town right now, and I love it, and I think it's great. So that's my thought, but I will listen to what anybody else wants to do. Does anybody want to make a motion to vote? If you do, raise your hand or tell me you're ready to make a motion. None? Doric, did you want to add anything or say anything at this point?
I did. Mostly I wanted to chime in and say that what I've heard you say is the thing that resonates best with me. If it turned out that the town did make a commitment and get involved with this thing, the least worst use of the land seemed to me to be that nice mixture of the affordable housing plus some green space to the back, especially because it abuts other potential, maybe sort of kind of future green space as well. I think that's the most uniform and dynamite solution if the town has the commitment. I do understand that this may not be the property to blow the budget on. That makes sense.
Okay. Any other comments? No. Okay. Well, I'm hearing no motion. So I think what we'll do is we're going to have to schedule another meeting between now and the 23rd. And we'll have to do that at the end of this meeting. Okay. Good thing is we can do Zoom, right?
So, but what's the point of that, having that next meeting? Is it so that we can answer to? Okay, so we can have time to gather some of those questions that we have unknowns about, answers to those questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. So open space has to either waive the right or make the suggestion that they would like the select board to act on the option for first refusal. So like we need an affirmative yes or no in action from open space specifically because it is in chapter.
Yep. Okay.
So Cindy, do you think if you get a chance to speak to Mark at Kestrel and find out if he's aware of any joint open space, affordable housing type of,
Yep, I will definitely do that.
And I have some into I have a email into Shelley Goring from Mass Housing to ask some similar questions, and I just haven't heard back. She's the one that presented to the select board a few months back.
I also would encourage you to call Paul at the Southampton CDC. So,
yeah, I was going to send him a message too, April, and I wanted to speak with you at this meeting first before. Paul Lachetti, right? Yeah.
Yes, Paul Lachetti. Yeah.
Who? I'm sorry, call who?
He's from Hilltown CDC, Paul Lachetti.
Oh, Lachetti, okay.
Met with him in the past, yeah.
Hilltown.
Paul as Peter Paul, and Lachetti is Lischetti, I believe.
Chetti. All right, at Hilltown. What did you call it? Hilltown what?
It's Community Development Corporation.
CDC. Oh, CDC. Okay. Very good. And then I'm going to contact Mark Walmsley. And Joy, are you thinking of speaking to Ken Comia?
Sure, I can shoot him an email.
Okay. And is there anyone else who can think of any other individual or organization that should be contacted to inquire about this?
I'm still waiting to hear back from state housing through Lindsay Sabadosa on the 70% clarification. And I know Ed is also speaking to, I think, legal to find out clarification, because if we were to acquire the property and then turn it over to somebody like a Hilltown, does that mean it has to remain 70% in open space? I don't clearly have an answer to that.
Okay.
That's why I'm confused, because it feel like with that phrasing makes it sound like there is a potential to do open space, affordable, mixed use. So that's where I'm like, I need clarification, because it makes it sound like it might be possible if you were to assign our rights.
But can we get grants to support both at the same time and things like that, I think is.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'm ready to cease on this topic unless somebody wants to add something else.
Thank you for all your time.
I'm seeing goodbye. All right. Thank you, Sierra and Janet, for coming on that. And okay. Well, let's move on. Holy cow.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Janet. Thanks, Sierra. All right. We have a couple other topics to discuss. I need to report on the property, and I'm going to give you the name on this one because they're actively working with Kestrel Land Trust. It's called the Courtney Property, and it's on the north end of the Manhan River, which is, if you go to the north end of Pomeroy Meadow Road and you look kind of across the open field there are a few houses there, but the river's on the other side. I can see April's opening her maps. Do you have a map number on that, or April in front of you or not? If not, don't worry about it. I didn't look it up. I'm going to tell you that these people approached Kestrel independently and with the idea of doing some kind of conservation of this land. And the Kestrel's very excited about it. Yesterday, they got an appraised value for it, and it's $385,000, which includes the conservation restriction of $310,000 and then some additional monies. And the owners will be presented this appraisal tomorrow. The town will, if we are going to acquire this, we are going to, and there will be a grant involved in this. It'll be one of the water protection grants, because they note that this is very much a part of the Barnes Aquifer recharge area. It's a critical area for that. It's a very beautiful wildlife area too. I think, April, you said you've been out there and seen wildlife, and it's gorgeous. And Diana and I were going to walk down the river one day when it was dry, but we couldn't get very far. So anyway, because it was hard to walk in the riverbed. So there isn't much more to tell you, except that if we are going to acquire it, we are going to have to go to the town at some point for use of open space monies to contribute toward the acquisition of this. Now, one thing that Mark told me was that the CR would be held by the Water Commission on this because of the kind of grant that they're applying for, which is why I'm a little confused, Charlie, as to why they said Kestrel owned the CR on the Pomeroy Meadow property, but I'll sort that one out later, because I don't understand why they said the Water Commission would need to own the CR on if we were to acquire this property, this part of the Manhan. So I don't have the answers on that right now, but that's just a report. Otherwise,
Cindy, it's map 8, parcel 1, and it's 117.24 or 34 acres.
Okay, great. You can put that in the minutes, Janet, please. Map 8, parcel 1, 117.24 acres or 34 acres.
Okay.
Great. Great. And I also know that Mark told me.
Could I just ask, where would the access be? The public access would be from
Pomeroy
Meadow onto that land?
Right.
Yeah.
So a little east of the Meadow Lane cul-de-sac on the other side of the road.
Is that near the other conservation land that's what's it called, the Whittemore land?
Yes, it's across the street.
Yeah. Well, over there, it's Easthampton. The other side of the road would be
right. So this property
Easthampton.
borders Easthampton. Does it go? It doesn't go any further than that, right, Cindy? Not this.
I don't think so. But also, I think it's on the other side of the road too. April, it's on the.
No, I'm just talking. It's all on the north side of Pomeroy Meadow. It's not. There is other protected land across the street behind Meadow Lane, that cul-de-sac. But but that's not involved in this property.
But it's on the Courtney land is on both sides of Pomeroy Meadow, correct?
No, it's just on one, as far as I can see.
Okay. Well, I don't have the map in front of me, so I can't share that with you. There'll be more to follow on this. This isn't anything that requires our action at all. It's just an update report on what's going on with this. But this might be something we want to contribute to. All right, so the next thing is, I brought up before the fact that we have before us the opportunity to apply for another neighborhood outreach grant. And I will say that, where's my screen share here? share screen. Mhm. Here it is. So this is a potential for, oh, did I only save one page? No, it's over here. This is the potential for something that could be started ASAP, and it could go for up to $5,000. And the goal would be to develop, again, relationships with landowners, to talk about ways of conserving their land, similar to the ones we've already done it twice. And it's coming out October of 2021, but it goes through the beginning of next year. So we can apply anytime, no match is required. This is a reimbursement grant program, which means we purchase and expend all the funds, and then it's reimbursed back to them. And our town accountant has to make a special account for that, et cetera. And it all has, this is a critical point here, it all has to be completed no later than April 15th, 2022. And the bills have another couple weeks to be submitted. We have a brand new town accountant, but we have done this twice before, and I think Ed is pretty familiar with this now. And so it does require a proposal. It doesn't have to be a lengthy proposal. And it's work. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I am going to be pretty much out of town for the entire month of April next year myself. So we would have to do this ahead of time. Last year, we were tremendously impacted by COVID-19. This year, a lot of people have been vaccinated. And so while we still have COVID in our midst, we have opportunity to go into buildings wearing masks, requiring vaccinations, et cetera. So I see it as a little bit different in that regard, that we could do this in the wintertime, whether we ask to go back to the church, or we do it in town hall, or we do it, if it's a small group, in the library, et cetera. So I will say, if we choose to do this, I'm going to need assistance from others, as usual, and maybe a subcommittee to kind of flesh out how we're going to do this. So that's one thing. But before I ask for that help, I will tell you that this idea of a landscape partnership grant is going to require a lot of legwork, a lot. I've made a lot of strides in contacting some landowners. I've got an entree, I think, with a landowner up on the 238 parcel property on Fulmer Road. His name is Justin Smith. We talked about that parcel last year. I've spoken directly with him as of in the last few days. He's not committing, of course, but he has a connection with the people that have the land just north of him, Norton Garfinkel, and who's an elderly gentleman who's sadly just had a stroke, and his wife, Sally Menard, and they're looking to do something with their land. So that is going to take activity. And I mentioned to Janet Brown that there's another smaller parcel on the east side of Fulmer Road that is represented by Dick Evans, whom she knows pretty well. And she said she would make the contact there. And there's others that would have to do this. We'd all have to contribute. I just need to test how everybody feels about this at this point.
Let's do it.
Dan. Okay. Did I lose Joy? Did Joy leave? Is she there?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. I didn't. Okay, sorry. I opened a better here. I'll stop this. So we should do both grants. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to get results, you got to do work, right? So.
Okay. Dan and I are at opposite ends of the spectrum of this. Okay.
Okay, so we don't want to do work?
Go ahead.
No. I want to do work with being realistic about what work we can expend ourselves on.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. I don't think I can help.
Go ahead, Diana. Finish what?
I feel like I'm completely absorbed by administering two land grants right now, in the middle of those, and no, I just don't see myself doing more in terms of grants until those two are accomplished. I mean, we got the grants, but administering them is is the real work, as you know. And that's all consuming right now for me.
Fair enough. April, were you going to say something?
In terms of helping out with the workload, it's the busiest part of my year in real estate. So I'm not very much help in the early spring. So.
Okay. All right. So Dan, you said do it, huh?
Yeah, if we can get a team together. It doesn't have to be you guys, but let's see if there's other people in Southampton who we can pull on to help, if possible. If we could build a squad, we possibly do this.
So I am aware of a lot of stuff going on in Southampton. Trust me, I'm about as energetic as anybody in town. I really am. And I'm also having a hot flash.
How would it differ from the previous two? What would we do differently?
I think in my opinion, we would make personal phone calls more than we did this time to get people together in smaller groups, and we would hold it inside. Those would be the two big differences. We did more just letter writing and a few calls, and we met outside and we met on Fridays because of a lot of reasons. Some of the speakers would be the same and some might not be. Some we would be just trying to get people to talk among themselves. Like you used to say, Diana, just, pie and coffee, to just bring people together. It doesn't have to be expensive, but we could use this grant money for time reimbursement. Well, not that I'm looking for money, I'm not, or the pie and the coffee and the postage if we send it out, and maybe more than pie, maybe pie and whipped cream. So just, a little extra there. So that's, to me, the difference. And I do feel we've got momentum, and I think we should ride the momentum and not let it die. So I'm okay with this, but I don't know if Dan, you want to, I can give you the old proposal for these grants, the old ones that we completed, and you could attempt to write a new one, and then I could look at it. That would be a big help. If you know of somebody or others.
You said that we could possibly spend this money on paying somebody to do this work, right?
Paying ourselves to do this work. Yeah.
Paying ourselves we can't hire somebody?
No, you cannot pay yourself.
Okay, can I pay somebody else?
Very clear about that.
Okay, so could you say hire a person to facilitate this because we're all so busy?
I guess you could, but I mean that's almost as much trouble as doing it yourself.
Agreed.
Because you'd have to educate that person about what we need, who to contact, and everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Cindy?
Well, the who to contact part, eligible costs include staff and volunteer time, Diana, right here. Outreach expenses, stamps, paper, design, and printing, and event expenses, revenue rentals, speaker stipends, food and beverages,
But I've just been through it with the ethics committee, and ethics in Boston, they are very clear that a person who requests the grant or a committee or whatever cannot be paid by that grant. That's what they say. I think I went through this with Paul Catanzaro.
Isn't that weird? Wow. It's interesting that they would write this. Interesting. Don't know what to say. I'm only reading it here. I do think that some of the work is...
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Some of the work as far as locating the who, and I'm not talking about 200 people. I'm talking about like 30 or 40 people at max to be invited. We have their contact information, and we have all that because April did a lot of work the first time, and you did a lot of work, and I did a lot of work. So I'm just thinking.
I just feel like we're supposed to be forming relationships with the landowners and hiring somebody else to form that relationship for us defeats the purpose.
I didn't say all my ideas were good.
Okay, well, anyway, how about if I accept that there's people that have interest here, but there's time limitations on everybody. Dan, maybe I'll work with you on trying to do this request for proposal. Go ahead and put this together, a proposal specifically, and then we can see how far we get, and we'll see if we can follow through on this. I am committed to doing this neighborhood outreach grant if at all possible. We've started the work connecting with Kestrel, where, you know, I'm a little nervous because we know we've got a lot of things before our town, like budget issues, like a possible new public safety complex, like the Greenway, like, you know, what else? Everything.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like I'm interrupting everybody when I speak in, but it's hard because I don't know, like if my phone's, I don't know, because I can't see everyone. So would we be using this outreach program to reach out to landowners to help garner interest in this landscape grant with Kestrel? Is that the point of doing this, getting this community outreach to get? Yes. Yeah.
I would say small case, yes.
Okay.
Because some landowners might not want to sell their land. They may want to conserve it. And therefore the landscape partnership grant wouldn't apply to them. But we would certainly find out what they wanted to do with their land. That would be part of the goal. So go ahead, Joy. Yeah.
No, I just want to, if you guys want to do the grant, then I am all on board to help with it. But I want to see any community outreach that we're doing. I would like to have like a goal in mind, in the back of our mind. I want very targeted outreach, if that makes sense. Like, what, you know, besides just acquiring open space, I just feel like this group has done so much great work in the past couple of years, and we do have some beautiful properties, but it's been difficult to maintain on, you know, from the Conservation Commission side and whatnot. And I just want a goal in mind and target of, you know, when we are outreaching to the community, what do we have in mind besides, you know, if they are looking to sell, or if they are, you know, what are we as a town going to do with this land? And if there's a goal to put it towards the landscape grant work, great. But I don't want to be outreaching to the community just because we can, if that makes sense.
Good point. I don't disagree at all. It's great. And I think we have the opportunity to achieve the determination of whether we should even apply to the neighborhood outreach grant, whether we can test the waters with this or not. If we find there isn't enough there, that's it. Won't happen in Southampton.
Maybe this isn't the year for it. I mean, you need the right type of people to talk to them too, right? Some people, I think it's all about the approach and building the relationship. If you've already started building that relationship and then you have different people talking to them, it can not make it as smooth. So,
right.
I don't know, something to consider.
Okay. Charlie, what are your thoughts?
I want to make sure, somewhat like Joy, what are our priorities? You know, on all the open space issues that we're addressing, you know, because our resources, time commitments are limited. So what would be number one, number two, number three, number four? And let's focus in on those. What would you say number one is? Now we have a new issue with the East Street property and a joint working with affordable housing. We have other issues that involve properties. And to me, it's getting a bit overwhelming. That's all. You know, you've got properties on Pollinator Meadow at the end. What exactly are we going to do with those? What are we going to do is approaching those people? You're going to get some information tomorrow or shortly.
we're not going to approach them. That's all being handled directly by Kestrel.
Okay.
They're handling that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's just that there's an awful lot going on, and I just wonder what the priorities are. That's all.
Okay. Question. Can we request this grant on behalf of Kestrel?
Which, the neighborhood outreach grant?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
That would be the town of Southampton. That would be our open space committee.
Okay, it has to be done
But
by...
the landscape partnership grant would be joint with Kestrel.
Okay.
We would not be writing that grant. That would be the understanding. They would be doing the majority of the legwork. That's very big. To me, that's part of what's a positive here, is that we did what we needed to do. We got on their radar. That's what we needed. That's part of, in my opinion, part of the momentum.
So if you think that keeping up with the momentum, like I said, I think if we do community outreach, I think that we should have a targeted goal of outreaching to as many people who would be candidates for this landscape grant work. I think everything we do should be a conjunction with the other thing, so that we're not spreading ourselves too thin with many different goals. If one, each goal should each action that we take should be aiming at a singular goal, if that makes sense.
Okay, so let's make that the goal, to get this neighborhood outreach grant and do everything we can to get to there. Sorry, April, go ahead.
No, and I would go for the grant, and then I think it will, if we get it, which I can't understand why we wouldn't, I think it might dovetail into making the public aware of the several things that we've talked about in timing very nicely, actually.
Okay.
All the things we're talking about here.
Okay, so Dan said we need other helpers, and I'm not saying hire outside consultants, but if you, and I know there are so many needs in our town, there are so many boards and committees that are short experts. We know that. Policy, what is it? Personnel Policy and Procedures Board needs things. Finance Committee needs people. The new committee for looking at the financial state of our town, that needs people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if anyone knows of someone who would be interested in helping us on this, they wouldn't be on our committee, but they could be part of our effort. Could you, and I don't just mean cleaning trails, obviously, could you speak with them and speak with me, and we could see if they could come to another meeting and help us on some of these other things. Good. Okay. Any other thoughts on this?
Pardon me. What about at the high school? The kids are supposed to do community service projects for the letters and the envelopes and stuffing and all that kind of stuff. Could they help that in that way?
Well, I don't know that this is something that a high school volunteer could participate in. If it was just stuffing letters, you came to my house one day, Janet, and we stuffed letters, and it was fun. I mean, I had fun, but licking stamps. I don't know that I'd bring high school kids in to something like that. No. We definitely could involve them in some of this trail maintenance stuff that's hanging out there, but not. And there's pros and cons. That I understand, like the Pollinator Garden. We'd like to see them work on that. That's a small project, maintaining that. If you think of a great high school kid that needs something, or a college kid, or a college grad that needs volunteer work, that would be different.
I know. I was just going to say that two of my favorite and very dear former Conservation Commission members, besides you, Dan, were both UMass graduates, one in forestry and one in wetland scientist. And they were qualified and just wanted to volunteer on the Conservation Commission. So if we can find like college grads in the area who are just looking for something, to help put on their resume and to get some experience behind them, that would be awesome. So maybe I'll keep an ear out or eyes out and reach out to different programs.
That'd be great. And I could ask Mark at Kestrel if anybody who needed like internship hours or whatever approaches Kestrel to say, gee, is there any projects we can work on? Or maybe Paul Cantizaro at UMass. You know him, Dan. Why don't you ask him if he knows of anybody? Because you took courses from him.
Yeah, I've taken a class with Mrs. Wells too.
Oh, Sarah Wells, really?
Yeah.
Is she there?
She was in the
Okay.
class, yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, let's move on then. We're not killing this idea and we're still kind of massaging the idea, so that's good. I just want to tell you something I learned from Chief Illingsworth last week. I met with him on another topic, but you know how we cannot walk on the property that's owned by Holyoke Water? We can't walk around the Tycomode Reservoir. And he said, do you know why? Does anybody know why? Because I didn't. It was very interesting. Well, the answer is it's a public water supply and maybe related to 9/11 or maybe just new regulations. But if they were to allow public access to the lands around it, they would have to put an extremely expensive filtration system on that water.
Yeah.
And so that's why that's policed by the environmental police, and the fines are pretty stiff. So that is the reason for it. So the likelihood that we're going to ever have access to that water property.
The restriction date far back before 9/11.
Mhm.
I think it's been restricted since Holyoke bought it in the 30s or so.
No, I don't know about that, Diana, because I've heard of people that used to walk all the time around it. And, you know, in fact, school kids, didn't somebody say there were like school tours of the...
No, ever since I've been here 31 years and it's been restricted all that time.
Okay.
On Old Home Day, there was one man who would get the key from Holyoke and go open the gate, and everyone on Old Home Days was welcome to walk around there. And that was the only time.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
anyway, that's what the police chief told me is the reason for it. And it could be that it well preceded 9/11. So I didn't know that. Okay, let me see if there's any other announcements to make. Does anybody else have any specific announcements regarding anything that is of interest to the Open Space Committee? Okay, then we have to set up a next meeting, which has to be soon because we got to follow up on all these things. I could do next Monday's Conservation Commission. Actually, that's not a good night for me. Planning Board is 7 o'clock next Wednesday, but we could meet at 6 because it's not going to be a long meeting. We're just going to talk about this. Is next Wednesday or actually next Wednesday is the best because Housing Authority is Thursday or next Friday. I propose Wednesday because Wednesday at 6 o'clock of next week be okay for people?
And what?
What's the date?
The 17th.
17th, Wednesday. All right, no problem.
Only one topic and one major topic to discuss, and that's the East Street property right of first refusal before the town.
At what time, Cindy?
6 o'clock, Zoom.
6.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, great. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We're all in favor.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you,
night.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good night.
You too.